In section 2.2, we're going to just study more graphs and different ways that we can display data. So another way that we can display quantitative data is with a stem and leaf plot. And what happens is we have the stem be sort of the left side of the graph or chart, and the right side is what we call the leaves. So those are like the ending digits in each data point. And I think this is easier to see with an example than to just try to explain how to do it. Once you do it one or two times, it's pretty easy to do, but it is interesting if you've never seen it before. So notice that I have all these different data points, right? So I have quite a few data points here. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I have 5 times 10 or 500, 5 times 10 or 50 data points. And the way we do a stem and a leaf plot is we are going to put the digits of each data point and we're going to split them up. So the left digit is going to go on the stem side or the left side of the chart, and then the right digit is going to go on the right side of the chart. If something has more than 2 digits, it doesn't split evenly. Usually what we do is we just have only 1 digit on the right. So our leaves are the right side. We tend to like to have 1 digit only there. So you would have the 2 digits on the left. Let me show you how this works. So look at all your different values here. So it may actually help to put this in order too. So if you have some time before you start, you could go ahead and just put these numbers in order, and actually will make the rest of the process go much quicker for you. Either way, we end up ordering it. So I'm just going to go ahead and look through for maybe my smallest data point and just see where my digits start. So I do see a 19 here. I see a 16. I don't see anything with single digits. So it looks like I start with tens, right? 16, 19, something like that. And then I'm going up pretty high. I see a 122. I see a 149. So I'm going to do my digits like this. So I'm going to start at 1 because, again, there could be something smaller, but just quickly looking, my smallest number I see is 16. So if I cut that 16 in half, that 1 would go on the left and the 6 goes on the right. So that 1 is going to go on the left of my chart. So I'm going to start with the 1. If I didn't have any, if I only had single digits, like let's say I had a value that was 7, I could start with 0 and represent that 7 as 0, 7 so that I could split and kind of separate the digits out. So I'm going to start with 1. I'm going to count down the line. I don't want to skip any digits as I'm going down. So I find like my smallest digit first, and then I can go from there. So I have 1, then I have 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now I'm going to continue on into 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14. I'm going to stop at 14 because, again, I noticed that my largest value here is this 149. So if I think about 149, when I split it, I only want to have 1 digit on the right. So I'm going to split it like this here. Okay. So this left side here, you can think of these sort of as your stems. We don't really label them like that, but just to kind of think of it, those are your stems. And then on the other side, I'm going to draw a vertical line. Those are like our leaves. And again, we don't usually label stem and leaves, but I'm just going to show you how this works, why it's called a stem and leaf plot. Think about like a branch, right? If you have like a small branch, you may have different leaves coming off of it, right? So it's like that branch is the main piece, and then you have these little leaves coming off. And we're doing that here. So in this case, our first branch or stem is that first digit 1. So I'm looking for all data points that have that first digit 1, and then I'm going to put the other values off to the side. So for instance, I have that 16 already. So that first digit is 1 and that second digit is 6. So that 6 is my leaf. I'm going to put that 6 here. And then I'm going to look for my next value. So I also have a 19. So again, I have that 1 on the left, and I'm going to put the 9 on the right. Now, I'm going to write it actually next to the 6, like this. And then I look for any more ones. So if I do say see any more ones, now I see some ones here, but notice that it's not just a 1, it's a 115. So that's actually going to be under the 11 group. Okay, so now I can go with my 2s. So I'm looking for things in their 20s. So I see a 20 right here. Actually, let's use different colors, make it easier. So I see a 20 here. 28, 26, 29, 26. See, 29, 29, 29, 23, and I think that's it. Nope, here's a 24, I missed one. Okay. Now, the reason I'm kind of going in order is that when we do our leaves, we do actually put them in order. So it does help to just kind of go in order. If you don't want to go in order, you just may have to rearrange your numbers afterwards. So I always start lowest to highest. So I'm looking for all the 2s. So again, I have those are all in their 20s. So I'm just using the other digits at the end. Now my smallest number is 20 with a 0. So I'll put that 0 here. Then my next smallest one, it looks like it's 23. So I put that 3. Then I have a 24. So I put just the 4. Now I have 26. I have 2 26s. So I'm going to put a 6 for that one and a 6 for this one. Then I do the 28. And then let's see, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 29s. So I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, 4 9s. Okay, and that's all of them. I'm just making sure I haven't missed anything. And now I'm going to go ahead and do my 3. So now remember, 3 represents 30s, right? So those in the 30s. So I'm going to go through and look for anything in the 30s. All right, I see a 33 and a 33, 39, 32, 33, 30, 33, 30, 34, 38. I'm going to double check because again, it's if you take your time up front, it's a little bit easier in the end. So that you're not reorganizing or doing the chart more than once because things were in order, or use a pencil, something that you can easily tweak. So now I'm doing my 30s. So that 3 is already counted for as a digit. I'm just using the ones place now on the other side. So I see a 30 as my smallest, so I put a 0 there. I have another 30, so I'm going to do another 0. And then my next smallest number looks like it's 32, so I'll do a 2. And then I don't have any more 32, so now I do 33. So there's a 33. There's another 33. Here's another 33 and another 33. Now I see a 34. And I see a 38. And I see a 39. And then I'm going to continue on. So let's do one more together. So now I'm going to go to the 4s. And I see a 49 here. I see a 41, a 48, a 43, a 40, and a 41. Okay, and then again, I go in order. So the smallest number is 40. I put that 0 because that makes 40, right? 40. Then I do 41 is next. So I have a 41 there, and I have another 41 there. I see a 43, 48, and a 49. Now, as you're going through, you may have some columns that don't have anything, and that's fine. And if something doesn't have a value, you're not going to add anything in. You're just going to leave it blank. So I'm going to pause for a second and go through a couple more quickly, just enter those in, and then I will resume the video in a minute. Okay, so I just went in and filled in a couple more of the rows, or rows going across here. And I made it through the 9s. And now we're getting to double digits. So remember, things in double digits, these are now getting into the 100ths. So for the next group, I'm really focusing on 100s here. So something with a 1, 0, and then another digit, right? So it could be 100, 101, 102, 103, all the way up to 109. So those are the ones I'm looking for in this case here. So I see a 102, and that's the only one I see here. So I'm just going to put the 2 there. Remember that that represents 1, 0, and then 2. And then for the next group, these are your 110s, right? So I'm going to look around here, and I do see a 115. So that becomes a 5. This represents, so you have the 1, 1, and then the 5, so 115. Now I'm looking at the 120s, and I see one value there. So again, I put that 2 because that is the value 122. Now, if I look, I don't have anything in the 130s, so like 135, 134, something like that. There's nothing there, so I'm just going to leave that blank. I'm not going to put a 0 in because that represents a number, so I'm just going to leave it blank. And I don't forget, we did have one already circled that I haven't used yet. This is 149, so I'm going to put my 9 there because, again, I have the number 149. So this is my stem and leaf plot. Again, I'm doing it by hand. Obviously, we can have technology that can do this for us too, but I just did it by hand here and just by counting. So your values should be in order. The other thing we do have to do is to include a key. So what you'll often see is something written off to the side like this, and I'll say key, and it'll look like this. So they're just showing us how to read those numbers. And again, this line here represents this line all the way down there. So they're showing us that when we have something like 10 line 2, that represents the number 102. So that you know how to put these digits back together. So we're basically just combining these digits together here. You do see the occasional problem though. We don't always have to have whole numbers. We can have decimals and fractions and things like that. So you may see a key that says something different. Maybe it says something like this. 5-2 equals 5.2, right? So if you have your stem and leaves, I'm just going to do a couple here as an example. Maybe I have 1, 2, 4, 0, 0, 5, 9, 1, 5, 8, 9, 9, and then I don't know, 0, 0, 3, 4, 6. So something like this. Well, here your key is telling us that this is not the number 52, it's the number 5.2. So something like 2, 0 would be 2.0, or 2, 5 would be 2.5. Right? Or 4, 5 would be 4.5. So you do have to put a key in there so that others know how to read it, because they may not have your original data point right, or your original data points right in front of them. So a lot of times you'll see that we're just using whole numbers, so the key is pretty straightforward. But sometimes we may use decimals or fractions, so you do need to have a key here to show others how to put the stem and leaf plot sort of back together and get back to the original data. Now, the nice thing here is you can see patterns. So it almost looks like a sideways histogram, right? So if you actually line those numbers up, you can see like which bars are the highest. So I can see that most of my data occurs here, right? In the 2s and the 3s. So most of my data points are in the 20s and 30s, and we're talking about text messages sent. So you'd probably think that in general, most people send about 20, 30 text messages rather than something like 140, right? We also can see that there are very few numbers down here. We even have a gap. So this 149 almost looks like it could be an outlier. So an outlier is sort of like an exception, like it's a rare occurrence. Like most people do not follow under this value, right? So you've seen that most people tend to come right in here, right? They're kind of like below 100 text messages. And you have sort of this one outlier in particular that's really way off by itself. So an outlier is usually like an unusual value that you would say most people probably don't relate to. So these are nice too, because we can see patterns really quickly, just like we can with histograms. You can also tweak this stem and leaf plot. So I know this is a little hard to see. This is in your text. I had a hard time copying this picture in. So let me just kind of zoom in a little bit here. Oops. All right, so here's just a variation. It's the same data points, but what they've done instead is they've split it. So there are variations on the stem and leaf plot. So for instance, we can take the previous example and organize it such that each stem has 2 rows. So notice that we're having that number 1 or number 2 or number 3 twice. So we're kind of doubling that stem and we're splitting it. So in the first row, for instance, you would have your values from 0 to 5. And then in the second row, you'd have your values from 6 to 9, for instance. So you can see that here. So for that first row, that 1, the only 2 data points I had were 16 and 19 for the tens. So I don't have anything with a second digit that says 0 through 5, so we're leaving that blank. And then same thing here. So this first row contains values 20, 23, and 24, and then we kind of split and do the upper 20s. You have 26, 26, 28, and so on. So there are ways to do variations, and sometimes I can help you see the pattern a little bit better. So we can kind of, again, really see here that most of our data is really clustered below 100 text messages a day. And that you kind of have these more rare values leading off to larger points. It also helps to show us that that 149 really seems to be much more of an outlier than we initially thought. Like it really seems to kind of be off by itself, and that is more of an unusual data point. So again, just some variations on this stem and leaf idea. The key thing here is it does help us to see patterns. So we can see clusters, we can see outliers or things that look a little bit more unusual, kind of like outside the norm. So an outlier is something that's outside the norm of what we're seeing for the rest of our other data. But again, it's almost like, I think they're like sideways histograms almost, where you can see those bar heights to see where you're having the most data points in each category.